Okay, I've sung pop music, I've done barbershop harmony, I've done 40s music, I've done you name it, all sorts of different genres of music, even musical theater. But I remember doing a musical theater show called Annie Get Your Gun, and my wife, Sarah, we were just newlyweds. She sees me come out as this character named Mac on stage. This is during a dress rehearsal. And during the break, I come walking over to her. I'm juggling some circus balls and things like this, wearing my chaps, my vest, my cowboy hat. And I go walking up to her, and she looks at me, having just married me, and she says, "You're supposed to be a country singer." I said, "What?" I mean, I love country music, but I'd never thought of myself as doing it. And so I thought, wow, that's interesting. She says, think about it. Look at all the songs you're writing, and they're very crossover. You got the look. Maybe it was just the outfit I was wearing, but she gave me that. She planted that seed in my mind that you could be a great country artist. And I thought, wow, okay. And I believed her. So what I did is I had the opportunity shortly thereafter that summer to work with a band called Lone Star. You guys ever heard of this group, Lone Star? They've had so many big hits. And this guy, Dean Sams, right here, he's the founding member of that group. And he, we just performed in front of like 65,000 people with these guys. And as my brother says, a kind of our pop group, none of my family knew I wanted to go out and do music and country sing and all that stuff. But I did. I had that dream and that vision in my mind, and I always loved these guys' songs. So I said, I'd love to write a song with you guys. I walked up to Dean. He's the keyboard player. I play the piano as well. So I said, is that your keyboard? Of course it was. He was just playing it. But sometimes if you want to talk to somebody, you got to have something in common to talk to them about. So I said, that's my keyboard. So that's awesome. And I just started talking about that. I said, I'm a songwriter. I love to write songs. I've had Brian McKnight produce a few things for mine, and my brothers have sung some of my songs. But you guys never do a bad song. It's always been my dream to come out to write with you guys, and that would just be a dream come true. And he says, well, here, you got something to write on? He gave me his email address, and I wrote it down. He says, come out to Nashville sometime and we'll write. I thought, is it that easy? Even the lead singer gave me his email address too and told me to come on out. So I'm thinking, no, it's not going to be that easy. They're not going to call me. I've got to create the opportunity. So shortly after that meeting with these guys, after that show, I emailed Dean and said, Dean, I'd love to take you up on your offer to write. So I held his feet to the fire a little bit. If somebody makes you a promise, hold them to it. So I had to use strategy, though. I had to say, okay, when are they going to be off the road? When can I most likely have the best chances of hitting this goal? Probably before Christmas, but not too close to Christmas. So I said early December. So I said, Dean, I'm coming out to Nashville between this date and this date. I'd love to take you up on your offer to write with you. He wrote back to me, says, great, Nathan, it'll be fantastic. I'm producing a duo. So as we get closer, why don't you email me? I'll tell you what I can and can't do. I said, perfect. So with faith, I went ahead and booked my hotel, my rented car, my everything else, my plane ticket to get me to Nashville, Tennessee. Now we're getting about a week out. So I wrote out to Dean. I said, Dean, I'm excited. I got my hotel, my car, my ticket booked to fly out there. I'm excited to take you up on your offer to write with you. Do you happen to have a phone number where I can reach you when I get out there? Because all I have is your email address. Would you please send that to me so we can get in touch and chat? No response. Shoot, I just put a lot of money into this trip. And all I have is his email address and no laptop to take with me. So as I get towards the day of flying out, I write to him again. It's the day before I fly to Nashville. Hey, Dean, I'm coming out to Nashville. I don't have any way of reaching you on a phone. Do you happen to have a cell phone number or studio number I can reach you at? Nothing. He never responded. Now I'm going to Nashville, Tennessee, absolutely blind, on complete blind faith, hoping that I can meet him and do all that we decided we were going to do, but I have no way of reaching him. So what do? You get tough. You got to network. You got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone, or what Brian Tracy calls your danger zone. And to be willing to do what most people aren't willing to do. Cold call, reach out to people, ask questions. Hey, do you happen to have a number on Lone Star? No, I'm sorry. Do you know Lone Star? I don't. Sorry. Hey, and I called up a drummer friend of mine. Do you happen to have any number on Lone Star? He says, actually, I might have their tour manager's number. Perfect. So he gave it to me because I asked for it. And I called the guy, his name is Coach. And I say, Coach, how you doing? Nathan Osmond. We worked with you guys this summer in front of 65,000 people there in BYU Stadium. I said, I'm supposed to be out here in Nashville writing with Dean. I just landed last night. I know he's got a new studio. I tried to prove I knew the guy. I said, hey, do you happen to have like a studio number on him? He says, all I have is his personal cell phone number. I said, perfect. And he gave it to me because I asked. One of my favorite books says, ye have not because ye ask not. So I just asked for it, and he gave it to me. So now I got his number. I'm sitting in a studio with another songwriter friend of mine. Miranda Lambert's in the other room, and she hadn't quite made it big yet. I got to meet her. And so I call him up. I said, Dean, how you doing? I'm in Nashville. This is Nathan. I'd love to. He said, I thought I gave you my cell phone number. He said, no, I got it from Coach. He said, let me call you back in 10. Well, guess who doesn't call me back in 10 or 20 or an hour or 4 hours or 6 hours? Now Charlie Brown starts kicking back in. I start beating myself up again inside, going, he thinks I'm just a fan. I'm some psycho kid that's now got a cell phone number who's in his backyard in Nashville. All of these negativity thoughts started flowing through my mind, and I had to shut it off, just like I did with Charlie Brown. I said, stop it. Whether or not he calls you back, you go let Nashville turn you on. You go and get inspired by this Music City, USA. I'd heard about this place called Broadway, where they have all of these famous honky tonks where all the legends used to go and play. And I said, go down there and just listen to the music, get inspired. I had a little tape recorder in my pocket. So I went down there. What's Legends Corner? What's Tootsie's? What's the stage? What's this building right over here? It looks like a church. The Ryman Auditorium. That's the original Opry House. I didn't know any of this stuff. That's the original Opry House before the Grand Ole Opry. And I just learned a ton. My wife had a dream that I was discovered singing karaoke. I saw this one big blue neon sign that said Wannabes Karaoke. So I went in there. I waited almost an hour in line to be able to sing. I sang God Bless the USA to the top of my lungs, and everybody gave me a standing ovation. I didn't get discovered, but it kept me out late enough that when I was finally in front of the Wild Horse Saloon, right, they're waiting to go in there, my phone goes off at about 10:30 at night. And it's Dean Sams. And Dean Sams says to me, hey, Nathan, what are you doing right now? I'm so sorry. I'm such an idiot. I totally spaced. I totally forgot to call you back. What are you doing right now? I said, I'm in my car driving to your house. How in the heck do I get there? And he just laughed. He says, Nathan Osmond, I love your tenacity. That's what you got to have to win it out here in Nashville. You got to have that go get it attitude, right? So he said, I didn't even have a GPS. This is a complete miracle. I actually found my way out to Franklin, Tennessee in the middle of the night, right around midnight. I found my way into a studio there, and it was so amazing. That's Broadway right there. That's a picture of Broadway where I went. And, but the thing is, I walked into the studio, and there's this grand piano. I took a picture of it right here. And he was sitting there with another songwriter. And he says, all right, well, sit down at the piano. Show us what you got. In other words, prove yourself. I had waited for this moment my whole life. And so I started pulling out some of my best songs, just snippets of them, just to kind of wow him. He said, wow, you wrote that song? I said, yeah. He says, play another one. So I did. He loved that one too. Play another one. I did. Finally, he cuts me off. He goes, Nathan Osmond, 3 things. Number 1, I hate you. And I got nervous. And then he finished the sentence. He says, because I'm a piano player and you make that look easy. Number 2, what are you doing in Utah? You have so much to offer Nashville. We got to get you out here. Number 3, tomorrow night at 9:00, guess who's coming to my house to write? You are. And I was trying to contain all my emotions inside. I was so thrilled about his reaction to my songs. And so I used some strategy. I said, let's play up on the ego a little bit. This guy's a superstar. I said, hey, Dean, do you happen to have any starters, any songs you started but haven't finished yet? We can maybe work on one of your songs. See, that's a key to success, guys. Help people get in life what they want. You're going to get what you want tenfold. So we started with one of his. I recorded this melody, and I took it home with me that night on my little tape recorder. And the whole next day, I spent the entire day working on this song, trying to pray, trying to figure out what's this song supposed to be about. I wrote the whole thing, showed up at 9:00 with the whole song written. I said, hey, Dean, I sat down at that same piano. I said, listen to this, see what you think. And after I sang the song, it's like, you wrote that? I said, well, I just kind of threw it together. I spent the whole day on that song. And he loved it. We tweaked it. We made it even better. And then I had enough time that night to actually record this song. I had a whole demo, and I cried as I drove back to my hotel room because I had been tough. I targeted, I understood what I had to do, I focused, and I fought. And now I'm listening to the stream coming out of the car speakers as I'm driving back to my hotel. A demo that I had just written with Lone Star and performed and played the keys on. See, the thing is that there's a lot of people in life that will tell you what you can and can't do. How many of you guys are related to people that just love you so much they don't want to see you get hurt? I didn't tell a single person in my family that I was going out to Nashville to work on this stuff. And the thing is, guys, let me just tell you what happened. This song that we wrote was written for Rascal Flatts, but they already had their album in the can. So Lone Star decides they're going to tie up this album. Okay. And this song that we just wrote, I'm thinking the first song I ever write in Nashville gets tied up by the one of my favorite bands. It can't be that easy. And you're right. Here's the rest of the story, Paul Harvey. About 2 weeks or so after this all happened, Dean calls me up. He says, Nathan Osmond, you're not going to believe this, but our lead singer of 14 years, Richie McDonald, just emailed the band and said he's going to go solo. He wants to be a Christian artist and wants to do a solo act. And we're just devastated as a band. You can imagine how frustrated we are. I'm thinking, great, there goes my big opportunity. There goes one of my favorite country bands. So I had to think quickly. I thought about my dream again. And I told Dean, I said, Dean, I'm so sorry to hear that. Let's do this. If you guys aren't going to record that song that we wrote, do you mind if I do? You see, it's always been my dream to be a country artist. And he says to me, Nathan Osmond, why don't you just come to my house and I'll record you. I'll produce you. We'll do it upright. And I said, you better not be fooling, man. I'll take you up on that. And I did. And that's how I got my foot in the door. I went out there to Nashville and I recorded with him. And that's me in my first recording experience there in Nashville, Tennessee. And that's my very first album. We got 4 consecutive #1 hits. But the thing is that at the time, before I went out there to record with him, I was teaching real estate on stage. I was a big MC for big financial conferences, doing 155 conferences a year. I was busy. How am I going to break away to go pursue a dream? My boss isn't going to let me off to go and follow my dream. He likes me where I'm at, working for him. I didn't want to tell my parents about going out there because they told me, keep it a hobby, keep it a hobby. We all are related to people that just love us so much they don't want to see us get hurt. Why is that? Why is it that the people that we love the most oftentimes are the biggest toxic dream busters? Maybe they're afraid that you can make it, you're going to leave them in the dust. Or maybe they're just concerned that because they couldn't make it or what they didn't work, that you can't do it either. So rather than have those conversations with the people I love the most, I just decided I'm going to go out and do it. But I had to figure it out, how am I going to get out of the job for a week to go and record? So I told my boss, I said, hey, listen, my brother Dave is getting married. I need a week off for the wedding. You need a week off for a wedding? I said, you know how many Osmonds there are? You know how long that reception line is? I just had to make light of it. He let me have the week off, but what I didn't tell him was that I was on my way to Nashville, Tennessee to record 4 songs with Lone Star. And then I went to the wedding. I had some of the biggest players in Nashville, Tennessee on my album. And I brought it home. And when my parents and my brothers and everybody listened to it, they said, when did this happen? And I thought to myself, exactly when nobody was watching. And that's what you got to do. If you want to go do something in life, go do it. I tell you, these guys have become good friends of mine. When I went out there to record, there's the little air bed that I got to sleep in their studio right there on the floor, right below all their platinum albums and everything. And, if you got a dream, go after it. Why you? Why not you? Can you think of anyone else better than you to have this happen to? And as I look back and I see where that one decision to go out and pursue a dream, where it led, none of these experiences that you're seeing on the screen right now would have ever happened if I had never taken that leap of faith to go after a dream, a vision of what I believed was possible. At one point in time, this microphone I'm speaking on used to just be a dream, right? Everything that you see around you at one point in time was nothing more than just an idea or a dream. So what dreams are you fostering within your mind and within your heart? Do you believe that you can win? Do you believe that you have the goods to make it? Because there's going to be everyone and their dog telling you why you can't. So you got to get tough in life, and you just got to go do it. Nike has a great slogan, just do it, right? And that's what we got to do, is run with our dreams. Don't ask permission to go after what it is that you want in life. Tom knew what he wanted, and he went after it. Now look at it. How many millions of people are out there's lives are going to be changed because of that. Yeah, I'm going to tell you one last story here. I love this story because I believe in the power of one. I believe, as I've listened to Tom here today, how powerful the power of one is. There was a guy named Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. He was a professor of rhetoric, and he served during a crazy time in our nation's history, during a civil war when we fought against ourselves. And I want to show you a picture of this man, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, Colonel of the Union Army of the 20th Maine. And this gentleman right here was given a very hard order. You see, there's the 20th Maine soldiers right there. These are the actual guys. But on July 2nd, 1863, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain was on the far left edge of 80,000 men. They've been dwindled down to a small number of 80,000. They had a lot more than that. But what happened on that day is the South was coming up through the Valley of Death. In fact, they came right down. It says they're going to come right here through Devil's Den. They're going to come right up here, guys. And at all hazards, you are to hold them back, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, because if they come over this wall, they will take the higher ground and they will wipe us out in this little town called Gettysburg. So they gave him those orders at all hazards. You hold the line. Well, at 2:30 p.m. on that afternoon, the 15th and the 47th Alabama attacked, and they attacked with that rebel yell. That rebel yell was so piercing, it just made your heart pound and want to run. But they stood their ground at all hazards, and they pushed him back on the first run. On the second run, they pushed him back. On the third charge, he actually, they got over the wall, and they pushed him back. But there was black powder and smoke and gunfire going off and bayonets and everything else, and they barely pushed him back. On the fourth charge, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain takes a bullet to the belt buckle. Boom! He thought he was a dead man. But he realized he was okay, and the guys were able to finally push him back over after the fourth charge. And after this fourth charge, they were completely out of ammunition. They had no bullets. In fact, they were down to just about 80 men. Tom and his brother James were there as well. He had two brothers fighting. His brother Tom comes up. He says, "Do we sound the retreat?" He goes, "No. Tell your brother James to keep his head down. With three of us here, this could be a bad day for Mama." Man, three brothers. Sergeant Tozier comes over. He says, "Do we sound the retreat?" He says, "No, fix bayonets." Boom, 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 boom. They start putting steel on steel. And they're thinking, this guy's nuts. He says, "What do we do?" He says, "Exercise a great right wheel." And they're like, "What? What's a great right wheel?" One man says, "The colonel intends to charge." And before they could do anything, he takes out his colonel's sword, and with faith, he throws it downhill, and he says, "Charge! Charge!" And over this wall, 80 men with no bullets jump over the wall and into history, and were able to hold, guys. They were able to hold over 400 men at gunpoint with no bullets. The South surrendered that battle. And it's just a complete miracle story. In fact, one guy was holding about 100 guys at gunpoint by a tree, and Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain comes walking by him, and he says, "Sir, I have no bullets." And he says to this man, "Well, don't tell them that." These are real men. He wasn't trained. He was a professor of rhetoric. He was the first guy to show up in the recruiting office. All right, we got ourselves a colonel. That's how it worked back then. But he did the impossible, and historians, real smart people, have studied this story, and they said that this one man's move, this one day, changed the whole face of the United States of America. How? One man, one professor of rhetoric? How's that? Well, you see, if they say that if the South had won that battle at Gettysburg, they would have won the entire Civil War. And if they had won the entire Civil War, our country would look a lot more like Europe. It would have different countries, little small countries, more of a patchwork. We would not have had a military big enough on two sides to fight two wars, with Hitler on one side and Hirohito on the other during World War II. And the United States would not have been there to do so many great things for so many other countries, but because one man one day decided he was going to, at all hazards, hold the line. He and 80 men with no bullets were able to do the impossible. the South thought this cannot be the same army we've been fighting. They have to have been reinforced, and they quit. They gave up. You know, an interesting story happened too, because later on that man became the governor of Maine. Joshua did. And on one random day, he receives a random anonymous letter on his desk. And it says this: "Dear sir, I want to tell you of a little passage in the Battle of Little Round Top, Gettysburg, concerning you and me, which I am now glad of. Twice in that fight, I had your life in my hands. I got a safe place between two rocks and drew bead fair and square on you. You were standing in the open behind the center of your line, full exposed. I know your rank by your uniform and actions, and I thought it a mighty good thing to put you out of the way. I rested my gun on the rock and took steady aim. I started to pull the trigger, but some strange notion stopped me. Then I got ashamed of my weakness and went through the same emotions again. I had you practically certain, but that same strange something shut right down on me. I couldn't pull the trigger and gave it up. That is your life. I am glad of it now and hope you are. Yours truly, a member of the 15th Alabama." This is real history, ladies and gentlemen. The reason I tell you this story is there's a great book that says, "Thy days are known and thy years shall not be numbered less." It also says that if you're still here, your mission is yet to be completed. The key is finding purpose in what it is that you do daily. One man made one move one day that changed the entire face of the earth. It changed the whole country that we know of today, and I'm forever grateful for that. I wanted to share one last thing here, if I can, because I love history. And I got this from my good friend Andy Andrews. I asked him if I could share this here. He said, absolutely. I always like to give him credit. But he said that, Nathan, I love that story of Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, because I believe that we all make a difference. Every one of us has the power to change the world. One person can change the world, and I can prove it, he said. Really? I said, yeah. He says, one night I was in my room ironing a shirt, and I had it in the other room. The television was on, and it was that person of the week. Peter Jennings was talking about the person of the week for this week, and he was listening in to see who the name was going to be. He says, the person of this week, guys, is Norman Borlaug. I'm going to show you guys this. Norman Borlaug. Norman Borlaug, 90-some-odd-year-old Norman Borlaug was being awarded person of the week because he had created a hybridized type of corn and wheat to be planted in the the plains of Siberia and South Africa and South America, and it has literally saved the lives of over 2 billion people and counting. One man, Norman Borlaug, and he's now being awarded for this. And you see, Norman Borlaug, he was really upset because Andy said that, I knew it wasn't Norman Borlaug that saved the 2 billion people and counting. He says it was Henry Wallace, the vice president. Now, I'm going to pause the story here for a second. You see, the reason I bring up this butterfly effect is because this came from a doctor named Edward Lorenz back in 1963 exactly. He was there at the New York Academy of Sciences, and he'd had this idea that butterflies on the other side of the world could flap their little butterfly wings, and it could move air molecules, which could then move more air molecules, and so on and so forth, until it could create actually a big hurricane or a storm on the other side of the world. It was ridiculous, but it was interesting, so it stuck around. And after further insight of looking into this thing, which he called the butterfly effect, they actually found out that it was actually viable and worked every single time, and not just with butterflies, but with every form of moving matter, including humans, which is why I'm going to show you this story. In fact, they actually gave the butterfly effect the status of a law. The actual, like the law of gravity. The butterfly effect is better known as the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. This is huge. You're going to see how this ties into the story now, because he says it wasn't Norman Borlaug that saved the 2 billion people and counting. It was Henry Wallace, the vice president under Roosevelt. And people say, well, I thought Truman was the vice president under Roosevelt. You're right. He had a couple vice presidents, but his very first vice president was a guy named Henry Wallace. And while Henry Wallace had that position and that power of vice president of the United States of America, he hired a young Norman Borlaug to go down to Mexico, open this post to learn how to hybridize corn and wheat to save the lives of people. Well, so you think about it, it was really Henry Wallace that saved the lives of 2 billion people and counting, unless perhaps maybe it was just George Washington Carver. Now, you guys have probably heard of George Washington Carver if you like peanut butter or barbecue sauce or Worcestershire sauce or peanuts and sweet potatoes. Heck, the guy actually created the Victory Garden, which fed half the United States during World War II. But when he was a young student at Iowa State University, he had a dairy sciences professor that would send their students out on Saturdays and Sundays on these botanical expeditions. And he would allow his little 9-year-old son to accompany George Washington Carver as they go out and look at these plants. And while he's flapping his butterfly wings on peanuts and creating all those different products, and over here on sweet potatoes, creating all those products in the Victory Garden, when nobody was looking, he flapped his butterfly wings into the heart of a young Henry Wallace, teaching him what plants could do and the possibility to change humanity and the possibility to save lives. So if you really start to think about it, I think that George Washington Carver deserves that award, Person of the Week, don't you? Unless, maybe, just maybe, it was the farmer from Diamond, Missouri, Moses and Susan. Now, they lived in a slave state, but they didn't believe in slavery, which caused a lot of problems with these radicals like Quantrill's Raiders that would come in and shoot people and burn barns and steal horses. And one day they came on Moses and Susan's farm, and they started doing the exact same thing, shot a few people, burned their barns, stole their horses, and rode off with this one lady named Mary Washington, because she refused to let go of her little infant baby boy. Now, Susan and Mary were best friends, so this made Susan very distraught. And so rather than just mourn and be sad about what happened, Moses decided to do something. You see, he hung a poster over here, an inquiry over here, and a few days later was actually able to align a meetup with a offshoot group of Quantrill's Raiders. So on a cold January night, in the middle of the night at a crossroads in Kansas, they come riding up on their horses with their burlap sacks on their heads and the holes cut out for their eyes. And Moses gets down off of his horse, and they throw to him in this burlap sack something for which they traded his only horse. And they rode off in the night. Well, Moses gets down on his hands and his knees, and he opens up this burlap sack, and he pulls out this frozen, almost dead baby boy. And he opens up his shirt, and he stuffed that baby in his shirt next to his warm skin, and he walked that baby out talking to him, promising him that he would raise this child as his own, because he knew that his mother, Mary, had already been killed. And this is how Moses and Susan Carver came to raise that little boy, George Washington. They gave him their last name. So if you stop and think about it, guys, wasn't it really the farmer from Diamond, Missouri that saved the lives of over 2 billion people and counting? Unless, and that's the point, we could go on and on and on. Who knows who it was that made that one move that one day that saved the lives of over 2 billion people and counting? And who knows who it will be in your life? I mean, there are generations yet unborn whose very existence depend on what you do today and tomorrow and the next day, because everything that we do matters, just like Joshua and Lawrence Chamberlain. Look at the effect that one professor of rhetoric made that one day on July 2nd, 1863. Think about the people whose lives you're going to change. Just like that movie, It's a Wonderful Life. I call this the George Bailey effect. He wished he had never been born in the movie. And then God gave him an opportunity to see how the world would have been had he not been born. Guys, every one of us makes a difference, and not just for one or two or three of us, but for all of us, because everything that you do matters every single time. I'm going to wrap this up here with one last story. This is David Bach. He wrote all these great books. He's got a great library there. You should go read. Fantastic books. You know, I was working with him, and we were at the Copacabana in New York City. First time I had worked with the guy. I'd seen him on Oprah's Debt Diet and read his books. And he comes up to me. He's probably just practicing his talk. He goes, "Nathan Osmond, do you want to be rich?" What do you think I said? "Oh, yeah." He says, "Gotcha. That's a trick question. Everybody says they want to be rich. Here's the real question. Why? Why do you want to be rich?" And then we started talking about things that really mattered: our family, our lives, our legacies, traveling the world, experiences that we give to our children. You know, all of that matters. And so I always thought about that. Why? Because you see, that's the thing. This is what really riches and wealth is to me. And there's even a great billboard on the freeway I saw, because sometimes we buy into the idea that we work for a company or a supervisor or a logo or a slogan or whoever. But this sign right here changed my life. It says, the people that you work for are waiting for you at home. Think about that message for a minute. Who's depending on you to make that one move today that's going to change their future? It's the highway of inspiration right there, guys. If you want to read a great book, go read this one, Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor Frankl. This man was a survivor of 3 Nazi death camps. He had his entire life's work ripped out of his hands in his briefcase that he worked on his whole life and burned in a fire as he exited the train at a concentration camp. His wife was ripped from his arms, and his in-laws and other people, and every one of them died. He survived 3 Nazi death camps. Why? Because he had something bigger than him waiting outside those gates, those barbed wires and those towers with the machine guns. He had to restore what was burned in front of him, his life's work. It was so big, it was bigger than him, and it kept him alive. And he says in his first chapter, he says, don't aim at success, for success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue, and can only do so as an unintended side effect of one's dedication to a cause greater than oneself. Now, that's fancy talk. So he breaks it down in the very next sentence. He says, if you know your why, you can endure almost anyhow. Do you know why you want to be wealthy? Do you know why you have the goal that you have? Do you know what? Is it bigger than you? Is it bigger than money? It's got to be bigger than all those things. And if you'll make your why big enough, you can endure almost anyhow. And this is your friend Nathan Osmond saying, I believe in you. Go make it happen. Thank you so much for having me on here, guys. I want to give you guys a little gift. I hope you guys will go subscribe to my podcast too, but I want to give you guys something here. If you get a chance, go ahead and text the word home, and I want to send you a free song. And there's my email address right there. If I could ever be of assistance, let me know what I could do for you guys. But thank you so much, Tom Painter, for having me on the show today. Sure appreciate you.
Thanks, Nathan. It's amazing listening to that last talk that you did. And I think my most favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes. Oh, such a great show, isn't it? It's my father's favorite show too.
I just love that movie. And the butterfly effect is really about that movie. And
it really is.
A couple things that he did that made a huge difference. And the same is true with you. The small and simple things that you're doing, you are having effect. You're putting that little pebble in the water, and it's having ripple effects. And when you look at the influencer leaderboard, you can see those little things that you've done and the thousands and thousands of hours that people are getting the education that they need to change their life. This problem with social media is that's all over the place. There's no connection to it. The foundation is step by step. This is what you do. Boom, 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 boom. And it's the best. It's the best that's out there. So you don't have to surf through all this stuff. You can basically get a college education on success and money just by doing it online. Again, I want to thank my good friend Nathan Osmond. Download, reach out to him, get one of those great songs. I love his stuff that he's done. His music is wonderful. His family's wonderful. And he is really, truly an artist in so many ways. Not only an artist in music, but an artist in words and in deeds, and an artist for making a difference in people's lives. This is Tom Painter. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in another class.